What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boxing fans across the world? It is episode 57 of the Standing Eight podcast. And I promise you, we have an amazing podcast today with an amazing guest. You probably already see him. This is a gentleman who does not need an introduction, but he is deserving of the most proper introduction. And that's exactly what I'm going to give him, or at least an attempt to give him the introduction that he needs. This is a gentleman who's well respected not only in the boxing community, but in the fight game for many, many decades. This is a well decorated professional referee. Professional boxer, a well decorated human being in general. This gentleman won the Golden Gloves in the 60s. He was a professional boxer with a 10-1 record before becoming a professional referee. He was inducted into the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame in 1998, subsequently inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame in 2011. He refed close to 200 title fights. That is close to 200 title fights of the like of Amir Khan versus Marcos Maidana, an amazing fight that I watched, Oscar De La Hoya versus Julio Cesar Chavez, Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe. He was the referee who the fight in which George Foreman recaptured a championship belt, making the oldest heavyweight at the age of 45. He was the referee the Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz fight. He refereed Roberto Duran, Mike Tyson fights. He appeared in movies. He's not just a professional boxing referee, but also a movie star. Appeared in movies such as Rocky Balboa with Sylvester Stallone, I Spy with Eddie Murphy. He was in Play It to the Bone with Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas. He is AKA I'm Fair, but I'm Firm, and is both an absolute pleasure and an honor to have Joe Cortez on. And I say this on behalf of the entire Standing Eight podcast cast members, as well as the boxing community. Joe, thank you so much for taking your time to being on the podcast. It is absolutely not just my honor, but Aaron and Tommy's honor to have you on, to be in the presence of greatness like yourself. You're a well-decorated human being. You've seen it all. Tell us the life of Joe Cortez, because at this point, you should write a book at this moment, right?
Everybody's been telling me that. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being on board, watching the show, Standing Eight. It's a great show. I feel that this is what the fans need out there to be informed of the latest and of the past and of the future in boxing. And I just want to say also for those are suffering or lost or loved ones because of coronavirus, I offer my condolences, and I always say keep your guards up, keep your distance, and keep that mask on. I mean, we have to be so careful these days. It's a new norm now, the way things are going, but we have to get adjusted to them and accept it for what it is, and hopefully one day it's all cleared up. But for the time being, keep your guards up.
Absolutely, absolutely, John. Thank you for making that awareness. We're in some interesting times right now, not just in life in the world, but also in the boxing business. COVID-19 has affected everybody. I want to dive deep into your life. There's a lot of things that a lot of people probably don't know about you.
I hear you.
Many. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
Okay.
You
Many.
you were gone for about 15 seconds.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to, thank you so much for, bringing that awareness regarding COVID-19 and what's going on, what's going on the world right now, what's going on with boxing, et cetera. I want to dive deep, obviously, into your life. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about you. A lot of people don't know that you were a professional boxer prior to being a professional referee, and you had a very successful amateur career. Lead us into the time when you became a professional boxer, when you were in amateur boxing. Why did you get into boxing?
Well, there was a fighter by the name of Gaspar Elinio Ortega from Tijuana, and he came to New York back in 1955. I was about 12 years old at the time. He moved right next building next door to where I live, 99th Street in Spanish Harlem in New York, where I was born and raised. And that's where I met Gaspar Ortega along with his brother Felix, and Felix El Sapo. And they were standing in front of the building one day when I came out to go to school. I see these two guys standing in front of the building. I said, "Hey, how you guys doing?" I know they were like strangers. They look different. They look like Indians, Mexican Indians they were. And I said, "Oh, we're boxers." I said, "Boxer," but then they speak English, so I recognized that they didn't speak it, so I spoke a little Spanish. So I got into a conversation with them, and little by little, it was just Gaspar Lindo Ortega who took me under his wing, and my brother Mike Golden Boy Cortez, back in the '60s as well. We both became amateur fighters, but my brother Mike started first, and I was kind of afraid to go in because I had an accident. I was about 10 years old, and I broke my jaw on both sides. I fell off a wall and landed on my chin. And my mom always told me, no, don't go into boxing because you got a weak chin. Your jaw broke it was before. And I think it was a blessing in disguise, that broken jaw, because I never got knocked down in boxing. I got stung one time in the gym. And it was my brother Mike who stung me with a body shot, and he buzzed me with a shot to the head. Other than that, in boxing, I never got hurt. And but we went to the Golden Gloves, and Gaspar Ortega, who was a mentor. But then we had a trainer at the Boys Club, Johnny Markel, who got us into the Golden Glove programs. And in 1960, my brother Mike and I won I started boxing when I was 15. When I was 16, I won my first Golden Glove championship in Madison Square Garden. My brother Mike won the featherweight champion that year as well, novices. Then I won the Spanish Golden Glove the same year at 118 pounds. And then the following year, my brother Mike and I both took the New York, the Easterns, and the National Golden Gloves. And I also took, the Spanish Golden Glove Championship at a bantamweight class. And that's how it all started. In 1963, actually 62, we both went into the Golden Gloves, tried to go 3 years in a row. We got a little greedy, and my trainer, Johnny Markel, was in a terrible car accident. He was able to train us that year. So Mike and I were actually training ourselves with a substitute trainer in the Golden Gloves tournaments, and we both lost a decision, close decisions in the finals in 62. Then in 63, I decided to go pro. I was 18 years old. But we was on the national team with the Golden Gloves in Chicago. I was 17 years old, the youngest on the team, 17 years old. You find a guy named Oscar German, who was one of the toughest bantamweights in the country, knocking out everybody. I remember one day Emmanuel Stewart came up to me and said, "Hey, Joe, were you that skinny Puerto Rican from New York that beat Oscar German?" I said, "Yeah, how do you know?" He said, "Well, he's the guy that beat me, and you won the Nationals that year." So it was amazing, winning these championships along with my brother Mike. But, it was not easy. It took a lot of discipline, a lot of sacrifices to be a fighter. I was going to high school at the time, but they told me at the school, "No, Joe, you're not going to make it. There's only one fighter, Jackie Kelly, who was a Golden Glove champion. He went to the same Agampos High School like I did." And they said, "Joe, you're not going to make it. You're too skinny, Well, I proved that by physical athletes. I proved them wrong. Not only did I not only win one, I won 6 Golden Glove championships. And then when I turned pro, Gaspar Ortega told me, "Hey, Joe, we got to take you to Mexico." Actually, took me to Bakersfield, California. My first pro fight as a bantamweight. I stopped a fellow by the name of Tony Salgado, who later, many years, like 25, 30 years later, we became good friends here in Las Vegas. And Tony Salgado was my first opponent. I stopped him in the 3rd round in Bakersfield. Then Gaspar took me to different places. I was fighting in Mexico. Some of my fights are not even recorded because I knew I had an 18-1 record as a pro, and some box rec doesn't show all my fights, but that's okay. The thing is that I did the right things in life. I kept myself clean, kept myself focused. And first of all, Gaspar Ortega, who was a great Mexican, like a big brother. He's the one that I would say I take my hat off to him. Gaspar Ortega, like a big brother. He's the one that I give credit to. And of course, Pat Masha, who was a policeman in New York. He used to referee my fights for the Golden Gloves. When I moved to Puerto Rico in '69, I started working at the El Conquistador Hotel, and I worked my way up the ranks to executive manager of the hotel. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, his guest, Pat Masha, was a guest at the hotel along with his wife, Rosemary. Called up the operator and said, "Can I speak to Mr. Cortez?" He said, I got on the phone. I said, "Mr. Cortez, are you one of the Cortez brothers from New York? I see the same name, Joe Cortez." "Yeah, I am." He said, "I used to referee your fights where you won your championships in Madison Square Garden." One thing led to another. He's a gentleman who planted the seed in my head. He just passed away about 3 weeks ago. May his soul rest in peace. He was 96 years old. But he's a man that planted the seed in my head about becoming a referee. One day he tells me, Joe, we come to New York, give me a call. Following year, 77, I was moving back to New York. And I called him, Pat, I'm back in New York. He said, Joe, I want you to get involved in the amateurs. I said, amateur referee? He said, yeah. I said, wow. He said, call up Johnny Defoe on Webster Avenue Police Athletic League, and he'll talk with you. Next thing I know, I'm doing the amateurs PAL tournaments, and the Golden Gloves are right around the corner. Johnny Markel and Joe Defoe said, Johnny Defoe said, Joe, I want you to get involved in the Golden Gloves. Let's see what happens. I went to the amateur program. Next thing you know, I'm working the quarterfinals. I said, Joe, nobody was in quarterfinals first year. I worked the semifinals. And they said, Joe, you're going to work 2 championship fights. I've only refereed 6 months. 2 championship fights with the Golden Gloves, and Juan Laporte was one of them. He won the featherweight championship. I was his referee in the Golden Gloves. And the New York State Athletic Commission called me a week later and said, Joe, we were watching you. We want to talk with you. We were watching you fighting, doing the fights at Madison Square Garden. We want to turn you pro. I said, hey, I'm only doing this 6 months. I said, don't waste your time, amateur, Joe. You got the making of a referee. The way you move around that ring, you're more of a professional than you are an amateur. In the amateur, they don't move around. And he said, you move around quite a bit. You're always in there, in and out. Your boss a professional. Before you know it, they gave me a license. 6 months into the amateur, I'm already a professional referee. So I told all the referees out there, stay there 3 to 5 years before you even consider going pro, because you have to get some kind of experience. What helped me was that I was always in boxing as an amateur fighter. I was always around the game. That helped me to become a better referee. I had the instinct of what to jump in and stop a fight if a fight is hurt. One thing I learned from boxing, you don't want fighters taking unnecessary punishment. And that's what happened. And before you know it, they got me doing my first world title fight in 1982, 5 years after I turned pro. I'm refereeing Aaron Pryor, Miguel Montilla in Atlantic City for my first world title fight. And that's all I wanted. One title fight, I would have been happy for the rest of my life. And look at that, what happened. One fight led to another. And after 35 years in the game, I decided to pack it in. Go ahead. I'm going to let you guys talk now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's awesome. That's you transition over to become a professional referee, like you said, in the late 70s. And then, a couple of years later, Richard Steele, Mills Lane, they're basically, 1 foot out the door, and you become Nevada's and you become New York's preferred referee, and you start, refereeing, like you said, you were happy to do 1 title fight, and then decades later, you're almost close to 200 title fights. And you start becoming the preferred referee for a lot of these big fights, and that comes with a lot of responsibility. Transition over to, being a referee of a big fight, something along the lines of like a, Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe, or like a Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz. The preparation that goes into, because I know boxers have to prepare, but so do professional referees. You have to prepare as well, right? You have a certain mindset, especially with different fighters, right? Refereeing Mike Tyson fight is not the same as refereeing like a Tyson Fury fight, right? It's completely different. So go into that transition when you start, you start becoming the preferred referee for a lot of these major title fights.
Well, what happened was back in 91, the Nevada State Athletic Commission reached out to me and asked me if I would consider coming out to Vegas. Actually, as a judge first. They had me out here for a couple of fights as a judge, because back in the day, when I started refereeing, there were only 2 judges, and the referee was the 3rd judge. The referee would judge and referee simultaneously. So they were checking out my record from Chuck Minka, who was the executive director at the time. They said, we're checking out your record. We see you have an outstanding record as a scoring a judge. And we are going to bring you out to Vegas to judge Larry Holmes and Michael Spinks, the rematch. The first one, Larry Holmes lost, and then the second one, a lot of fans felt that Holmes won the fight as well. But it was one of they say it was one of a bad decision for heavyweight championship. And when I scored the fight, I gave it to Holmes. The other 2 judges gave it to Spinks, and they were booing. They were booing like crazy. I said, "Oh my God, they booing me because I was the sole judge for going with Holmes." I thought they were booing the hell out of me. And the commission came up to me and said, "Joe, no, they're not booing you. They're booing the decision, you were the only one who had it right. So it goes to show sometimes you're not in the majority, but I was by myself, but they felt I was the only one who had it right on the rematch with Larry Holmes and Michael Spinks. So they said, all right, good, you did a good job. Enjoy, the only way you can work out in Vegas is you have to be a resident to be a referee. So I said, wow, okay. But then they called me out again to judge Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran, the third fight of the trilogy. So I came out, I scored that fight as well. I think gave Duran, I think it was 4 rounds, 5 rounds, 4 rounds. I think I gave him, and the other judges gave maybe 1 or 2 rounds. But that was my second fight. I said, Judge, I said, man, I hope they call me one day as a referee. And no, Joe, we can't do that, Joe. I'm your resident. And they called me out again. This time they called me out to judge another a Great Page fight. It was just a 10-round fight, but they called me to do that. They said, Joe, you move out here, you're going to be refereeing those fights, not judging, refereeing. And I said, well, I can't make a move. I had a good business. I was in the field of ophthalmology. I had my own business going pretty good for about 8, 9 years. It was kind of hard for me to step away, leaving everything back home, get rid of my job and my family, transported them to Vegas. It's going to be hard. So they brought me out here to referee a fight. Jeff Fennick and Super Nelson, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that was a great fight. They said, wow, that was Caesar's Palace outdoors. Oh, man. I said, wow, this is really a dream come true. They said, Joe, we're giving you a shot, but we have to, we're going to bring you out here, but you got to be a resident. I still was making that move. And then next thing you know, they said, Joe, if you come out to Vegas, we'll promise you'll be like the referee, like Bill Hayes and Richard Steele. And then little by little, a year later, I decided to make that move. I made that transition. I kept my business ophthalmology back home. I was going back and forth. I became a resident in Las Vegas, of Nevada. But it was not easy. And before you know it, we made a move over to Vegas. And I did it here 15 years back east. And they thought that was the right referee for Nevada. They was Richard Steele, Bill Hayes, and myself refereeing the fights here in Vegas. And little by little, they had me doing most of the major big fights in Vegas. And I did that for another 20 years, so 35 years. But in my 34th year, I had gotten inducted already into, I was already in New Jersey Hall of Fame. Then I got inducted into the World Boxing Hall of Fame. 2011, I got inducted into the International Boxing Hall of Fame. I think to myself, wow, man, this is really, I got to pinch myself. I can't believe sometimes all this is happening to me. And then I see, here I am, 2011, into the International Boxing Hall of Fame, Canastota, New York. So in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, how long am I going to stay in boxing? Because I had planned 25 years. Now I'm going to 35. I said, I got to make a decision what I'm going to do. And I decided 35 years into the game. Now, last year, I refereed about 6 World Championship fights that year. I said, you know what? I'm going to go out with 35 years. September 12, 2012, I decided to hang up the gloves as a referee, hang up the shoes and my bow tie.
Canelo, yeah, that was the Canelo. I think you ref the last fight was Canelo versus Josecito Lopez. Walk us through your feelings. I think you already knew back then that was going to be your last fight.
I decided that maybe about a week before, but I kept it real tight-lipped about it. And I didn't even tell my family, nobody, nothing. I just said, I'm going to just surprise everybody. When I got there that night, I told I think it was Jimmy Leiter Jr., the ring announcer, I said, yeah, you got to announce tonight my final fight, I'm retiring. He said, what? Joe, you're still on top of your game. I said, no, I want to go out on top. And I don't want to stay around. I see other referees, they stay around too long. Then little by little, they push you out. And nobody likes that. You want to go out when you're still on top. You're still a recognizable referee. Doing 6 championship fights. Now last year, my dream was to do 1 title fight. Here I am at the end of my career. I'm still doing like 6 of them. That many referees do 6 championship fights in 1 year. So I said, no, I'm out of here, I'm going to do the right thing. And I was only 69 years of age at the time. I said, I'm ready, but I'm 77. I still feel like I can kick some butt. I feel sharp. I get in this ring. I hit the heavy bag. I go over here, hit my speed bag. I still stay in shape. I feel good physically, mentally. I'm still there. I feel like I'm still a young stud back in the days, you know.
That's because you are a young stud, Joe. You are a young stud. And Joe, we got a glimpse right before the show of your gym in the background with all your memorabilia, but we have a couple of people already on. Can you just really quick, just a couple of seconds, can you just show what you have? Because it's fascinating. And I want people to see it because, I mean, you have not just years and thousands of dollars worth of memorabilia, but you have so much that describes who you are and what you've done and what you stand for in a boxing community that I like to share that with the people that are watching right now.
Okay, well, okay, this is like, let me take this, I tab it off. Here you go. And let's start like when you walk in.
That's amazing.
When I walk in from my, this is the mountain view here in Las Vegas.
That is awesome.
Okay, and so here we are, and we're gonna walk in to my gym. Walk into the gym. This is what you see when you walk into my gym. This is the first thing you're gonna see.
Wow. We might have lost him for a second.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, we'll get him back. We'll get him back. I shouldn't have suggested that. We should have kept him in his seat.
The essence was so powerful that it locked him out.
Right.
No, he's probably got like, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of memorabilia, if not more, in the background. He might have probably 2 commas, which is amazing to have. But yeah, I mean, Joe Cortez, everybody. We'll get him back on. Aaron, you want to maybe shoot him a call just to make sure he gets back on? I have so many questions for him. I still want to rehash the past. I'm still upset at the Victor Ortiz Floyd Mayweather fight. He's gonna get some slack from me on that one. He's gonna get some slack. So I definitely want him on. Yeah, for those who just tuning in, we have Joe Cortez on. Joe Cortez is one of the most well-known professional referees in boxing history. Carries the same weight as guys like Richard Steele, Mills Lane. Joe Cortez he's been, he's reffed over, close to 200 title fights. This is a gentleman who started, successfully as an amateur boxing, became a pro boxer in his 60s with a 10-1 record, short but successful record, decided to give it a quits, became an executive manager for a hotel in Puerto Rico, developed his career, and then literally got back into boxing as a professional referee. And then fast forwarded to this day, he retired in 2012. His last fight was Josecito Lopez versus Canelo. And that's pretty much it. He was the preferred referee for most major fights since Steele and Lanes stepped down as referees. And he's seen a lot. This is a guy who's a plethora of knowledge in the boxing industry, a guy who's got tremendous amount of experience, a lot of relationships in the boxing industry, with not just promoters and, not with just the athletic state commissions, but also with, boxers. That's one of my questions for him is who does he have a relationship with? Because I'm pretty sure he's got a lot of relationship with a lot of boxers. This is a guy who also helped Conor McGregor transition into the boxing fight with Floyd Mayweather. I think a lot of people don't know, but he was called to help Conor during a lot of boxing fights, sparring fights prior to the Floyd Mayweather actual fight. So this is a gentleman that is a staple in the boxing community. So we obviously want to get him back in. He was doing us a favor by showing all the memorabilia that he has in his boxing gym, which is in his house. And I think he's back on.
Hey, we are.
There we go.
Oh, man.
Joe,
I'm gonna get a 2-point deduction there.
You're not getting any deduction. So go ahead.
So here we are. So here's I think we were over here. We were here when we got cut off. So now I'll tell you this: Mike Tyson and I giving a couple of pointers. One of the days I was refereeing a fight. I got to referee Mike Tyson on 8 occasions. So it was always an honor being with Mike. And here's Julio Cesar Chavez and myself. We both got inducted into 2 Hall of Fames together at the International Boxing Hall of Fame, Canastota, New York. Then we got inducted 2 years later again together in the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, the inaugural class 2013. That
Wow.
was me up there doing the Rocky Balboa fight, Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Tarver.
Yeah, walk us through that. You were called in to obviously play, Taz in a movie.
Yeah,
Walk us through your experience with Sylvester Stallone. He's a huge boxing fan, obviously. Everybody knows that.
yeah. What happened was that I was refereeing one of the big fights in Vegas. I think it was a Mayweather fight, or could have been a Julio Cesar Chavez. I think it was a Chavez fight. And I got a tap on the shoulder before I was sitting there at ringside watching the fights before I went to do the main event. And it was Sylvester Stallone sitting with Sugar Ray Leonard. He said, "Joe, I'm doing a movie, Rocky Balboa. I want you to be the referee." I said, "Okay, referee, all right." So he got my information. I gave him my phone number and whatnot. Next thing, a week later, I get a call from MGM Studios. They're sending me a script of how I'm going to referee and whatnot. And it was a great experience because Sylvester asked me, "Joe, I've been watching you for years." He said, "I would like for you to help make this fight look authentic." He said, I want this movie, this fight scene look better than ever." I said, "All right, I can help you with that." So I got him 23 extras, like real judges, real referees, extra referees, timekeepers, inspectors, cornermen, commissioners. I got 23 extra individuals, and we made that movie scene in Rocky Balboa look pretty much authentic. And during the shooting of the movie, every time we did one of the scenes, and we would lean over the rope and look at the big monitor. And if I said, no, that doesn't look real, he's all right, let's do it again. Then at the end of the 6 days of filming for this movie, he chose all the ones that I agreed that they look pretty good. He kept all of those, and then they edited it. It took him about 6 months or so to edit the whole boxing scene, and they got it the way they wanted it. And it looked pretty much authentic. Not 100%, but it was pretty close to it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. And then you've been on
Yeah.
other movies as well with Eddie Murphy. You've been in a movie with Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas. Walk us through those two movies as well. I'm sure that's a great experience for you.
Same thing with doing a movie with Eddie Murphy was amazing. I just watched a picture up there of him and I up there when I'm sending him to a neutral corner. We're doing the introduction, and that's him and I, the movie director. And I would tell him, I said, Eddie, we got to try to make this look real. But I said, what I want you to do, I tell him, I said, what happened was, let's go back how it started. At one of the fights, he saw me at one of the fights. He says, "Joe, I want you to be," I said, "I've been watching you for years. You're one of my favorite referees." I said, "Come on, I'm your fan. You're one of my favorite movie stars. I love you." He said, "Joe, you're gonna be in my movie. We are I Spy. We're filming up in Vancouver." So they flew me up there for 6 days with him. We spent 6 days together. What a gentleman! He's a nice guy, and it was just an amazing journey for me with him. And of course, Antonio Banderas, same thing. Antonio Banderas, I got a call from his people. Hey, "Joe, Antonio wants you to be a part of his movie, Play to the Bone." And I did that. And they had me do another one with Wesley Snipes, where I played as a referee for Vin Rames, who was he became heavyweight champion after he got knocked out by Wesley Snipes in the prison. Called Undisputed was the name of the movie. And Eddie Murphy, Wesley Snipes knocks out this guy Vin Rames in prison, but when Vin Rames gets released from prison, he becomes heavyweight champion of the world, And they had me refereeing that at the end of the movie. So it was amazing, a great experience. And again, like I said, I've been blessed so many times over and over because I never thought that I was going to get to that level of not only referee, but also being involved with movies and being involved with so many dignitaries around the world. And it just has helped me to help other people out there. I like helping young folks, young fighters. I talk to young fighters a lot. A lot of these champions you see around today, they all know me from when they were growing up. They were watching me as a referee. So I get their respect. But by the same token, I respect them as well for their accomplishments and where they have gotten to. But I like to give them some pointers about, investing their monies. I see too many champions that I referee throughout the years never really ended up with any big money. Always ended up broke from rags to riches back to rags, And I don't like to see that. So my thing is to try to help them and guide them as they are champions today. I mean, I help out so many, trying to get them by the right track. That's why I love helping people, especially fighters, the young ones coming up. Devin Haney, when he was a fighter, 10 years old, we were up in Mesquite doing some amateur tournaments. And I told his father, I said, where's your dad? He brought up his dad, Bill. I said, Bill, uh, I've been watching your son, 10 years old, man. This kid's got talent, you know. I never seen a kid with this talent at that young age. He's a making up a champion. Here we go. 10 years later, he called me up and said, Joe, listen, I want you to be part of our team. I want you to be like an advisor with the Haiti team. I said, all right. So they had me travel with them several locations, and now he becomes a lightweight champion of the world. 10 years later, just like I told his dad, he had to make it up a champion. He's one of the better ones out there today. And you have not seen the best of Devin Haney yet. He's a world champion right now, WBC lightweight champion. There's a lot of competition in that weight class, but he's still going to play. He's going to be one of the top names to be remembered for many years to come. Again, and Sean Porter's another one. If Dad, Kenny Joe, I want you to help us out, and I want you to be an advisor with us. So I help out Sean Porter as well. And, his wife just had a baby recently, the second one. They have a little girl, and a little boy now. And he's a nice young man that I'll try to help out and keep them on the right track. And a bunch of fighters keep coming up to me, managers, and say, Joe, listen, my fighter would like to get you involved with our team and whatnot. And I'll see what I can do. I cannot commit to everybody because I stay busy doing other things. And I work with the Nevada State Athletic Commission as we speak right now. I'm a review official. So something to do the instant replay. We want the right guy to win. So now we are doing that. We started doing that about 2 months ago with ESPN with the fights. We started making some changes. So a referee would say that okay from a punch, and I tell her I had the headphones on. I got the monitor in front of me. I put the replay in. I said, no, wait a minute. I call timeout. Put a yellow light up. The referee calls time. I say you have to reverse that. That did not come from a punch. That came from an accidental headbutt. Then we reverse it. We want the right guy to win. That's what we're doing with boxing now, and that's what I'm doing there. And I'm glad to be one of the senior referees to help these guys out, make sure that boxing reaches another level to make sure the right fighter wins.
Yeah, and that's great because that's been an issue with boxing for quite some time, and you started seeing you started seeing some sports like soccer, implementing the instant replay,
Right.
the VAR. So it's a good time to do that with boxing because like you said, you want the right guy to win, or you want the right person to win in general. So that's awesome. So I want to go down memory lane. Obviously, you've been part of many, many fights. Let's talk about the most memorable fight you've been part of in your mind, like the top two that you believe.
I can tell you, one that always sticks out was when I refereed Roberto Duran against Iran Barkley. Roberto Duran was 35 years of age, and everybody said he was washed up by Iran Barkley. He just finished coming from a stunning knockout of Tommy Hearns in Vegas, and here he's fighting Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran, 35 years old. I said Roberto Duran's already kind of washed up, and I said to myself, man, this guy Roberto Duran, I got to be careful. I got to watch him close because we know Tommy Hearns can be very dangerous, and Roberto at his age, he had gotten, he had gotten knocked out prior to that by Tommy Hearns himself. Now Iran Barkley knocks out Tommy Hearns, and now here's Iran Barkley fight Roberto Duran. I said, well, I got to keep my eyes real close on Duran, making sure he doesn't get hurt or take unnecessary punishment. But that happened to be one of the best fights that Roberto Duran ever had in his career at 160 pounds. Now, we all know that he was perhaps one of the greatest lightweight champions of all times. And here he is fighting for the middleweight championship. He went from 135 to 147 to 154, and now he's fighting, for a fourth division championship against a devastating young Iran Barkley in his prime. And he beats Iran Barkley that night. What a war. You guys get a chance, any of you fans out there watching, watch that fight. You see from round 1 to round 12, every round got better and better and better. In the 11th round, Roberto Duran pulls down Iran Barkley with a 4-punch combination. And that's what I was going to be that night for Iran Barkley. But it was Duran who won a split decision, and it was well-deserved. And I thought that was one of my greatest fights, one of my great fights of referee. And of course, I always remember George Foreman. I mean, I refereed Mike Tyson at 8 occasions when he knocked out Larry Holmes and when he was coming up the ranks, and when, even including his last fight when he lost, I had to stop it in the 6th round after he got more fatigue than anything else when he fought Kevin McBride. But George Foreman knocking out Michael Mora. Michael Mora was in his prime. George Foreman, 20 years later, after winning the first championship when he knocked out Joe Frazier, here he is 20 years later fighting a young stud, I mean, Michael Mora. And he stops Michael Mora in the 10th round with a devastating short right-hand punch. Mora goes out. I mean, Foreman was losing about every round in that fight. The last punch he threw in that 10th round, the wicked right hand straight, short, put this guy with lights out, sweet prince when Michael Mora went down. And I started my count. When I was at 6, I said, is he going to get up? When I said 7, I said, oh, this guy's not getting up. 8, I said, 8 for sure, he's not getting up. 9, he tried to get up on 10. That was it. I waved it off. I looked to George Foreman at his corner. He dropped to his knees. And he looked up. I'm like, God, thank God. I won the heavyweight championship. That's a punch heard around the world, you know. And so that was a very exciting fight. Of course, doing a referee Julio Cesar Chavez against Oscar De La Hoya was amazing. Referee Chavez with Whitaker, the Alamo Dome, a draw. And then referee Chavez, the largest crowd boxing history, 136,000 fans against Greg Haugen. I mean, there have been so many championship fights throughout the years, but those fights stand out the most. But the best two, I say, Duran, Barkley, Foreman, Mora. Don't forget, again, like I said, Pacquiao with Marquez, the first one with Pacquiao gets knocked out 3 times in the first round. I could have stopped it. Nobody would have said anything. I saw something in his eyes. Being it was the first round, I saw that he still had a little spark in him. He still looked at me when he got hit with a punch. That was kind of questionable. He went down, and Pacquiao threw that one last punch. But Marquez was already going down to the canvas. I said, yeah, I could take a point here, but you know what? It wasn't that bad. And I said, and I'm not going to stop the action here. So I gave him the count. When I gave him the count, he sees me. He gets up. He looked at me like, come on, Joey. He hit me when I was down. I saw the reaction on his face. And because that reaction on his face is the reason why I didn't stop it. I saw he was still alert. Great fight. Now, Manny Pacquiao ended up he got a draw that day with Marquez. And top rank, Bob Arum said, Joe, he told the media one day at a press conference, he said, if Joe would have stopped our first fight 2, 3, and 4 would have never happened. So that's one of the great moves I ever made in boxing, not stopping that fight. And there's been some good ones. There's been some bad ones. The Pacquiao, the Mayweather, you're going to ask me that question, I'm sure. Mayweather versus Victor Ortiz. Victor Ortiz headbutted Mayweather intentionally.
I was going to ask you.
I knew when he did that was a bad call. Even to this day, every time I see Victor Ortiz, I apologize for him that night. He said, that team of guys that told me to headbutt Mayweather intentionally. And he says, he went on ESPN and said on ESPN on the show that we were doing Los Golpes. And and he says, yeah, my trainers told me to headbutt Mayweather intentionally. He said, that's the biggest mistake I ever made. And he said, Mr. Cortez, again, he said, I apologize. I said, forget about it. You made a mistake. Let's move on. But Victor Ortiz lowered his guard. He hugged him and he hugged and kissed Mayweather the first time. The second time, I said, all right. I give a signal to the timekeeper to ring the bell. Time was in again. And not to ring the bell, to call time in again. As I'm looking at the timekeeper, making sure he saw my signal. Next thing I know, Ortiz lowers his guards again, like to touch gloves with Mayweather. Mayweather clocked him with a left hook and a right hand and knocked him out. And I know it was not a good sportsmanlike type of a deal, but like Larry Birch just said, it was a legal sucker punch. And, I had to count him out. I know I'm going to get criticized by the fans, especially his fans, but it was legal. It's like if somebody tells you, hey, your shoes all the time, you look down and they clock and hit you with a punch, don't fall for those traps. That's why we tell the fighters, keep your guards up at all times when we give the instructions. But anyway, Victor Ortiz, nice guy. We've had lunch several times. And every time I see him, what a gentleman. He's a sweetheart. And I always wish him the best. A good man.
You also did some work with Conor McGregor in 2017 as he transitioned over to the boxing fight against Floyd Mayweather. Tell us about your experience with Conor and also his camp and how that went.
Okay, let me show you something. I got a picture here on this wall here. It's a picture of Conor McGregor, myself, and me up here with him and Paulie Magdalani. Okay, and
He's got the real picture.
yeah. So he wanted me to be there as a referee, so I got it there as a referee. Okay, and let me see. Let me get you back on the picture here. Did you go away? You guys got me on there?
We're here. We see you.
Okay. Okay. So anyway, so yeah, I was training McGregor. I got a call from his manager to say, Joe.
Joe, we don't see you now. We can hear you, but we don't see you.
Okay, let's see. Let me get you back on here. There we go. So he they told me I got a call from his manager. Say, Joe, we're calling you in reference to Conor McGregor. We want you to train him on the rules of boxing. I said, so he's fighting Mayweather. Okay. So when do we start? They said, could we start today? I said, today? What time? They said, in about 2 hours? I said, no, not 2 hours, maybe 5 hours from now, because I had a schedule for that day. I said, 5 hours, it'll be about 7 o'clock tonight. And they said, okay. So they changed their schedule. Instead of coming at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they came in at 7 o'clock. I went there to the UFC training headquarters. And when I went there, they were waiting for me, all the media people. I never see so many cameras and media people waiting, and Conor McGregor. So I came up the stairs. When I came up the stairs to the gym, walking up the stairs, there they were standing. Here comes Conor McGregor with his walk, tough walk. He comes up to me. I say, hey, chill out, buddy. You're not going to fight me, So we discussed the plan of action, what we're going to do. So they wanted me to train him for 5 weeks. So I said, okay. So they said, but we want you to manager said, we want you to come in there, dress every day as a referee. If you come in as a referee, this way he can get a feel for you as a referee in there with the bow tie and the shirt and all that. I said, all right. So I went in there and I would do my job with him 3 or 4 or 5 times a week. And little by little, every time he committed a foul or something, I would tell him, no, stop. You can't do that in boxing. You get point deducted. Then he once in a while, it was hard for him to break out of that habit. So one time I called time, and I brought him over. I said, 2 point, hit him behind the head. I said, then the bell rang. I went to the corner. I went to the corner and said, okay, Conor, see, this was going to happen to you in the real fight. If you continue fighting like this, the referee, who's ever refereeing that fight, maybe disqualify you. We don't want that. So this is the way it's going to go down. 2 point deduction. All right? Now we go back out here. We're going to do it my way. Yes, Mr. Cortez. Okay. We go back in the ring and keep on. He will do 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds sparring. And I'll be in there with him, making sure he was fighting the way he's supposed to. Because it's hard to break an MMA guy into boxing. There's things that happen in MMA. You get hit with the elbow. You can hit all kinds of stuff. In boxing, we disqualify you for that. So we all want to make sure that Conor understood that. And you know one thing? I was very proud of him for his performance because he gave the fans what they wanted to see. They got
Absolutely.
You didn't hear anybody complaining about him not fighting right or him not giving a poor performance, that he would get knocked out early or disqualified. No, he gave people their money for 10 rounds. I told him after the fight, I went into the dressing room. I said, listen, you had nothing to be ashamed of. I know you were more fatigued than anything else, but you did very good, And I just felt that he should have kept on. Maybe another fight with somebody else. Maybe Paulie Malignaggi, who was upset with one of the tactics that was used against him in the gym, and a lot of fans said that Paulie got knocked out from a punch. I said, no, it was more of a push than a punch. A punch, but it's a push, and I would have not called that a knockdown. But during that week, the media was after me like, I got so many calls and so many media people, Joe, was it a punch or was it a push? I can't talk about it. I got a confidentiality agreement contract. I can't talk about it. So I couldn't talk about it. But after it was all over and done with, I said I went on several shows and spoke about Conor McGregor, I said, you know what? I think that Paulie, who was so upset, still upset because he got such bad publicity with that push more than a knockdown. Why don't they have a fight now with Paulie Malignaggi against Conor McGregor? It'll be a good fight. Fans will buy it. I mean, they bought it more with Mayweather, but there's some money to be made there. With Paulie, I said Paulie was so upset. Come on back, and call a fight out with this guy. But it never happened. But it's never too late. Look what's happening now. Mike Tyson, 54 years of age, fighting Roy Jones Jr. September 12th in L.A. People say, Joe, what's going on? You did his last fight 15 years ago against Kevin McBride, D.C., and here he is coming back at the age of 54. Roy Jones Jr., 51. What do you think? You know what? It's going to be interesting. You see Tyson working out, the speed, the heart punching power,
He looks good. He looks good.
He looks good, but
For 54, he looks good.
he looks 54. Yeah, he looks good. But all he got to do now is just keep himself in good shape. And it's supposed to be an exhibition. I just hope that nobody gets hurt. Who's ever going to be refereeing that fight, got to make sure that give him the instructions the right way. This is supposed to be an exhibition. You don't want fighters getting hurt at this stage of the game and give a black eye to boxing. So it'll be nice to do it, put up a good performance, get the fans the money's worth, and do a senior tour like that. Why not? People love to see Mike Tyson, Roy Jones, but not to get serious about hurting somebody. If you got a fighter hurt, I think they should hold back a little bit. It's an exhibition. It's not a real fight,
I think fans need to understand that too, because I think a lot of fans are under the impression that it's going to be a real fight, and they need to understand it's just an exhibition. There isn't going to be people aren't going to get hurt on this fight. Roy Jones and Mike Tyson have a mutual respect for one another.
Yeah, when you see Roy Jones Jr. talking about what he's going to do and what Mike Tyson is going to do, so they're happy to get up for a pay-per-view. It's going to be a great pay-per-view event. And, people say, why not? Hey, Mike Tyson, a legend like him, Roy Jones Jr., a legend, two legends. Oh, yeah, we want to see that. Especially when Mike Tyson can show he come back like from the dead. He's like rejuvenated himself like when he was 20 years old. He looks fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, I want to open up to the panelists, Aaron and Tommy. There's a couple of questions. So we have you on Facebook Live. We have you on YouTube Live as well. So the couple of questions, and I think Aaron's going to read those questions, or maybe it's Tommy. And then they have their own questions as well. So I want to open up the mic to them really quick. So great. Aaron, I guess, Aaron, you'll go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. First off, I wanted to get back to one of your pivotal fights that you refereed, which was Evander Holyfield versus Riddick Bowe, the first one.
Right.
It was. I always wanted this too, and also one of our followers have wanted to. In the 10th and 11th rounds, those were some climatic rounds. Our question is, in any of those two rounds, how close were you in stopping that fight?
Well, you know what, it was especially that 10th round when Holyfield got hit with a shot, and I mean, Riddick Bowe is a young, hungry heavyweight from Brooklyn, New York, and wanted to get that championship so bad. It was a war. Every round was outstanding. You hardly didn't see any clinching. But one of the things when I talk to these fighters in the dressing room, my pre-fight instruction is about, I don't want any excessive holding. I don't want to start taking any point for holding, fouling. But one of the things I told these guys, I don't want to see any holding. There's no reason. You guys come in condition, and you feel me when I tap you on the elbow to get him out, keep punching. That means I don't want to go in there and break the flow of the action. But these guys in that first fight, in that 10th round, when Holyfield got hit, went back against the turnbuckle, watching that round again and that particular punch that he received, went back. I probably could have called that a knockdown because the ropes kept it from going down. But maybe I wasn't seasoned enough or the adrenaline or the action of the fight to call it a knockdown. But, I mean, Holyfield came back in that same round, came back so strong that he had Riddick Bowe in trouble towards the end of that same round. It was probably one of the best rounds in the heavyweight division you've seen in many, many, many years. And, of course, the 11th round as well. And then Holyfield did put down Bowe. And, that was in the third fight. Yeah, that was the first fight. The third fight was also a great one because that was where Holyfield had Riddick Bowe down. And the second fight, it was the fan man, Mills Lane was the referee in that fight. And that fight, Bowe lost the title the rematch to Evander Holyfield. And Riddick Bowe said, "No, I want that title back." The Fan Man incident disrupted the whole fight, And anyway, so they got the trilogy, was the third week, which is a great fight. They called me back to referee that fight, and that's when Riddick Bowe went down from a punch from Holyfield. Then I believe that the eighth or ninth round, Bowe put Holyfield down. Then I decided to stop the fight after he went down the second time. But it was amazing fights. Those three fights, Holyfield, Riddick Bowe, those are a trilogy that fans will never forget.
Right on, right on. And also, a more general question, like, what are the main factors that makes you stop a fight versus let a fight to keep commencing?
Well, one of the things I do, I study these fighters before the fight. I like to see their record. I like to know their style. I like to see like a Roberto Duran. What does he have after he gets hurt? Or Holyfield. You see, Holyfield has some of the greatest comebacks in boxing history as a fighter. You got to know your fighters. And then you determine, okay, he went down one time. Okay, we know he can come back after a knockdown. He's still good. But you got to say to yourself, how many times I'm gonna let this guy get hit? So it's like you have to wait to see the time. Got to be right. You don't want to overextend your authority as a referee to say, I'm going to stop it. Don't freak out as a referee. That's why it takes experience to have a referee who's been under the pressure. You got to be good on your feet under good pressure. How are you going to handle yourself? Are you going to freak out? Are you kind of like hesitate, maybe stop the fight a little too soon because you're afraid? Or your fighter, you can come back a little bit. You consult with the doctor. You go into the corners in between rounds. You check him out carefully to make sure that they're okay. Because sometimes by me going into the corner, I'll ask him a question during the rest period, and I'll say, "Hey, how you feeling? You okay? You okay to continue?" And he don't respond back to me. The corner says, "No, he's okay. I said, "No. Let the fighter answer me. Are you okay to continue?" And he kind of like hesitates. Say, "Why not?" He's like, I wave it off right there. I don't care what anybody else says. I wave off many fights in the corner just by me talking to the fighter during that rest period. And of course, then the other thing is that a fighter gets knocked down once, he gets cut, he gets knocked down in the fourth round again. You're watching, you go into the corner, you say you're okay, you call in the doctor. Now I got to sell my call, but I'm thinking already, this guy is definitely outclassed. You got to wait for the right time to stop it. So you got to sell your call. How do you do that? Like I said, call in the doctor, and go into the corner in between rounds, making sure he's okay, and see if he's taking a pounding, he's taking a little too much. You got to treat them like if they're your sons. I said, I don't want my son getting hurt. He's in a sport. I was in a sport. I know how it is, But do you want me actually to get hurt? No, I don't. I want him to come back another day. They could do better another day. But I'm not letting them get destroyed in there because of a lack of a good referee, or lack of knowledge of when to stop a fight. But I'd rather stop a fight a punch too soon than a punch too late.
Now, having said that, in your early days as a referee, you didn't have benefit of 20/20 hindsight. So in your early fights, did you tend to stop fights early just to be on the safe side?
No, you know what? I always took precautionary measures because I watching other referees and the era of when Benny Kid Paret took that pounding, got knocked out by Emil Griffith in Madison Square Garden in 1960. I remember that fight because I was there and I saw that fight. And I was at another fight with Willie Klassen for Wilfred Ciprian. Willie Klassen also got knocked out and he never recovered. I've seen those two fighters, actually die from punches taken from their opponent. And I watched the referees and I said, wait a minute, if that would have been me in there, I think I would have stopped it a lot sooner than they did. I don't want to take anything away from those guys, but as a referee, I said I learned from those fighters, from those referees. I said, you got to be a little bit quicker. Well, back in 1978, 1 year after I turned pro, Commissioner Larry Hazzard from New Jersey and myself started discussing about revolutionizing refereeing, using better ring mechanics, when to stop a fight, what to look for, when do you stop a fight, when do you take points. So Larry Hazzard and I created these kind of seminars. In 1978, we started our first seminar with a Dr. Mike Sabia, who was a ringside doctor from New Jersey. And that's where all the seminars started. And that's when you see referee Larry Hazard and myself. Larry Hazard stayed with me about 7 years in the pros. Then he got a call from the governor from New Jersey asking him if he would consider turning in his bow tie and his shoes as a referee and become a commissioner. So he called me up and said, Joe, I got a call from the commissioner, from the governor's office, say they want me to become a commissioner. What do you think, Joe? Everything. Larry and I would discuss everything like two brothers. I said, Larry, you know what? It's an opportunity for you. You know, I mean, that'd be a great opportunity. And if it doesn't work out, you know what, Larry? You could always come back. You got the talent. He said, you know, Joe, you're right. So next thing you know, Larry accepted the assignment as commissioner. And to this day, he's still a commissioner. Okay? And so Larry and I, we learned how to prepare ourselves as referees for making sure that the fighters did take unnecessary punishment. So I hope that answers your question. What we look for, we look at the fighters, you know, his body language. When he gets knocked down, he gets up. You can see, you know, where he's at. He's on a concussive episode. He's standing up. He's in front of you, and you know, it's your fighter to say, "No, I don't want to continue." Most of 99.9% will say, "I'm okay. I'm okay," but you got to just say, "No, you're not okay." It's like a policeman getting a driver with it who's under the influence. You pull him out the car. You look at him, and he said, "You been drinking?" No. Okay, let's do a test. You find out he's intoxicated. So we're like policemen in that ring. We got to make sure that these fighters don't take unnecessary punishment, especially when they're getting hurt. We got to make the right call and let them come back another day.
Great points. Great points. Also, we got a fan question. I'll put up and I'll read it out too. Who, as you know, Julio Cesar Chavez, he fought Pernell Whitaker. It was a majority draw. In your mind, who did you think won that fight? If it was,
you know, I tell you one thing. A lot of fans felt that Chavez pulled it out, and I'm sure 99% of the fans around the world felt the same way. But you know, that night when I was working the fight, I'm so focused in enforcing the rules and watching out for the safety of the fighter. And you know, when you got a southpaw fighter like Whitaker, real slick, you know, Whitaker had a tendency of going down real low, and he would come by, you're going down too low. I mean, he would squat all the way down and make it difficult. You know, you got to keep a certain regulation where fighters cannot. So I was more focused, controlling the fight, making sure that nobody took unnecessary punishment, making sure no fouls were committed. And it was a tough fight to call. You know, for me as a referee, after watching it, you watch it carefully and you say, you know, I think Chavez pulled it out. And I gotta agree with most of the fans out there. Chavez did an excellent job that night, but he got a draw, and they never had the rematch.
great points in that fight. Tommy, what you got, man?
All right. How's it going, Mr. Cortez? First question: Which era of boxing, you know, do you feel was the best for you to take part in? You've been in the game for quite a while, so you've seen a lot in different levels of the game.
Very good question. Very good question. You know, the era of when you had Mike Tyson, Larry Holmes, that was good. I mean, you had Ken Norton and those guys, but I always remember the middleweight, the welterweight division. You know, you had Marvin Hagler, Tommy Hearns, Roberto Duran. You know, it was I mean, Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns. That was a great fight. You know, Roberto Duran. You know, Sugar Ray Leonard. You had some of these great, and that was the golden era. That era, I mean, the 70s and mainly the 80s. The 80s and part of the 90s were two, but especially the 80s was the best era, I think, in boxing history. I mean, those guys, every time you saw a welterweight or middleweight fight, with Wilfredo Benitez, you had Roberto Duran, Esteban de Jesus. You had, then you go back to the day when you saw Wilfredo Gomez when he fought Salvador Sanchez, a featherweight. That was back in the 70s. But I mean, but the 80s, I say, was the best era in boxing.
Okay. All right. Do you feel that you've ever given a long count?
No, I never, I know nobody's ever asked me that question. I don't think I ever have. Uh, if you can think of one, tell me, and I can tell you if I did, it was not intentional, that's for sure. But no, never in my whole career, ever.
Okay, okay. Other than someone like Tyson, and you did mention, George Foreman and his power. Who was who was seemingly the most ferocious and powerful that you got the chance to ref in the ring?
I'll tell you, Mike Tyson was definitely, I refereed Mike Tyson on 8 different occasions. And I can tell you, Mike Tyson was a devastating puncher. He had the speed, he had the heart of a lion. This guy, he came to fight. I remember whenever a referee, it was like yesterday, I was giving instructions to him and Marvis Fraser up in New Paltz, New York. And it was Mike Tyson was fighting. It was a 10-round fight. He was not champion yet. And I remember giving the instructions to Marvis Fraser and Mike Tyson in that ring. And I look at Marvis Fraser. I could see it. The look in his eyes. He was like, he had like the fear in his eyes. I said, "Uh-oh, man, you know." And I thought to him, is he going to walk out of the ring or what? He was so. Well, Marvis Fraser, a nice guy, but he had fear in him. And if my instruction was longer than their fight. It lasted 30 seconds, maybe even less. So the first round, it was all over. Yeah, but Mike Tyson was a devastating puncher. Just by him, the stare down he did on you, it scared the crap out of you, man. Even Mike, you see Mike today, if you get him upset, he starts looking at you, and you don't know what he's going to do. What I'm going to tell you is that I cover my ears real quick, you know? Man, but Mike Tyson is a sweetheart. He's a good man. He's a good father, a great husband. He has turned his life around. So proud of him. But what helped his accomplishment, how a fighter has turned his life around. There was a time there that we thought that maybe he himself would say it. He didn't think he was going to live to be 30, And but here he is today, turned his life around. And I think there's an episode tonight on the some History Channel or something. He's got something about the shark bite or something. There's something with Tyson tonight, and I'm going to be watching. I'll put it on record just in case I don't make it on time to the house. But yeah, Mike Tyson, he's amazing. He's getting into different businesses, and he watches out for everything. He's involved in the community. He does a lot of people don't know about, and he wants to get himself back on track, which he's doing a good job of that. And his wife Kiki, has really been pushing a lot. She's really been I think Mike's success will come because of Kiki, his second turnaround in his life. He has a wonderful wife and wonderful children.
All right. You've mentioned the likes of Devin Haney, talking about some of the newer generation. Tell us, other than Devin, who is someone that you are really following and watching and expect to be one of the greats right now?
Well, you got Gervonta Davis is one, same division. You got Ryan Garcia, another one. You got Teofimo Lopez. Those four right there. Those are the fighters going to be like Hearns, Hagler, Duran, Leonard. Those are the kind of guys we're talking about. Haney, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, and I said Ryan Garcia, yeah, and Gervonta Davis. Those four guys right there. And you got Lomachenko in there, but Lomachenko is up in age, and they're looking about putting Teofimo Lopez with Lomachenko. And that's not going to be an easy fight for Lomachenko.
No, definitely won't be. And that's a lot of talk going around about that one right now, where supposedly Lomachenko is coming down on some of the money to make that fight happen, since they were beginning to be a stalemate. So pretty excited to see that.
Exactly, it's going to be a good one.
Another thing, we did talk earlier just about preparation as a referee.
Right.
Talk a little bit about how physically and mentally taxing it is being in the ring with those fighters, where you got to break them up, you got to watch them, you got to pay attention to everything that's going on. Just talk a little bit about that.
Well, being a referee, you have to be mentally prepared, and I tell you, if you have to be a kind of low key kind of individual, you can't get overwhelmed by the pressure of the media. And I told referee, if you're doing a certain fight, stay away from the media, because they'll say a lot of things that can sway you one way or the other. But you have to be in that ring and be as neutral as possible. You can't pick sides you got to be there to be. You have to enforce the rules and making sure you watch out for the safety of the fight. But you got to do your homework. You have to study everything and making sure that you're good on your feet. You're thinking good on your feet. You don't want to make any bad calls. I mean, we're all human. We're going to make an error here or there. But, overall, throughout the whole career, you try to say, okay, I got to try to do the best I can. I know I'm not going to be perfect 100% of the time. If anybody tells you they're perfect, they're lying to you. Nobody's perfect. We all going to make mistakes in any walk of life. But you learn from your mistakes and you go forward. But thing is to prepare yourself, be mentally prepared, do your homework on these fighters, and making sure that you know the rules, especially if you travel abroad, like we travel all over the world to referee championship fights, or you're working in different states, man, different jurisdictions, there are different rules. They may have the doctor can stop the fight along with the referee. Other states, only the referee can stop the fight under the advice of a doctor. There's a lot of things that go on in different states, so you got to make sure when you get to that particular location, that venue, or that you're there. Talk with your commissioners that are there. Talk with them before the fight, a day before, do the rules meeting, making sure you're on the same page. Make sure you got the rules for that particular state that you're refereeing in, or that country, to make sure that sanctioning body is the unified rules or is the local rules, who supersedes who, to making sure you're making the right call. This way, we don't want to have a referee make a mistake because he didn't do his homework. So that's why I practice that throughout the years. And when I give seminars that I talk to other referees, it's about making sure you know the rules. There's no excuses for a referee not knowing the rules.
Absolutely. One more question. If you have one, what was your favorite venue to referee in?
Well, I always loved refereeing in Madison Square Garden was one of them because I was a fighter there. I won my championships there. I refereed fights there in the past. My first 15 years as a referee back east, I refereed many championship fights in Madison Square Garden. And of course, Las Vegas is great. I mean, it is the boxing capital of the world. New Jersey, Atlantic City was great. I mean, I love working with Larry Hazard. Larry Hazard, like, man, him and I was so close with each other. We were always, to this day, we still are. You know, I always called to see how he's doing, his family, and making sure that things are. I mean, we talk about different issues that occur in boxing with referees and with fighters and whatnot. And I like to get his opinion on certain things because I did a lot of stuff, a lot of work with Showtime and ESPN. I wanted to be prepared when I was doing my media conversations, that I knew what I was talking about. So it's best to reach out to some of these commissioners to making sure that I sound pretty intelligently and knowing the rules of that particular state when I'm talking about boxing, to make sure, even though I know boxing inside out, but again, like I said, certain jurisdictions have different rules and they change as you go along. So you want to stay up to date. What's the latest in that particular state or country, to make sure that you sound pretty decent when you have a conversation with the media like yourself today and the fans, to educate the fans on boxing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gomes.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Joe Cortez. Joe, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of the Standing Eight podcast for not only taking time, but sharing all of that information, sharing your experience and your knowledge, not only as a boxer, not only as a professional referee, but as a human being, as a person that's in the boxing community, the way you are involved. And I want to thank you again for taking your time. I know you got stuff to do and stuff like that, but it was an honor and a pleasure to have you on as always. And I hope that we can get you back on again a couple of more times before the end of the year. And I'm going to leave you with just one question. I know that obviously, coronavirus has affected the sport, but what fight are you most excited to watch before the end of the year?
Well, I'd like to see the rematch with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, and I
Hmm.
want to see Sean Porter get back in there and with Earl Spence, or with Manny Pacquiao. And Manny Pacquiao is still champion today, and I think that when he beat what's his name? Last year.
Thurman?
Remind me the welterweight. He was supposed to be the pound for pound the best.
Keith Thurman.
Keith Thurman
Yeah.
and Manny Pacquiao. You know, it did okay that day. Had Thurman down in the first round. That was amazing. You know, it was just hard to see Keith Thurman come back again against a top welterweight out there. Hopefully, if they can't get Sean Porter to fight Pacquiao, then let it be a rematch with Keith Thurman and Pacquiao again.
Absolutely. Joe, thank you so much. On behalf of Aaron, Tommy, and myself, and Courtney, who's not on, thank you once again from the bottom of our hearts.
Okay,
Joe Cortez, everyone.
I just want to show you one more thing. This
Sure.
picture here, those pictures there, that's me when I won my Eastern Golden Glove Championship. I stopped 2 guys the same night in Madison Square Garden. I stopped, I got there at the left and this one on the right. So two KOs the same night in Madison Square Garden.
That's amazing.
Absolutely
amazing.
Many people can say that, man. So I take a lot of pride in that. I swear I want these young fighters out there to realize that if I did it, you can do it too. Because I mean, boxing is a sport that I tell these young folks out there: please keep yourself on the right track, keep yourself clean, disciplined, stay away from the drugs, the gangs, those bad habits. You don't need all of that to make it to the top. You keep a clean life. Like I told Mike Tyson when he was 13 years old, he came up to me. He told me this. He said, Mr. Cortez, I came up to you when I was 13 years old, and you gave me a couple of pointers. How did I make the grade? I said, you did great. You're one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. So you listen. So these young folks out there watching and listening, pass the message on. Keep on the right track. Try to do the right things in life. If you make a mistake, you know what? I believe in second chances. So if you made your mistake already, come back and give it all you got. Just like Bernard Hopkins did, like Mike Tyson did. Two guys, they were incarcerated, but they came back and they did the right things in life. If they did it, you can do it too.
Absolutely. Joe, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Joe.
Take care, guys.
All right, guys, that's
God bless.
episode 57. God bless you.
Okay. God bless
Good night,
you.
guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.